Welcome everybody. Glad you guys are here, and I appreciate you joining us today. And again, thank you to Diane and to Lexi and the rest of the chamber for hosting this series. Like she said, the 18th webinar. That's impressive. We're really glad to be here and share some information with you all today, and I think it brings a lot of value. So that being said, I am Ross Hessel. I am the Business Development Manager for Spherion. And I'm here in Indianapolis. I focus on Boone and Hamilton counties, as well as the north part of Marion County. And then I'm also joined by Anna Pittenberg, Kate Claxton, and Carrie O'Gara. These are three rock stars from our operations and our marketing team, and they're going to support our call today and assist with any questions that come in. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background. Spherion is a national staffing and recruiting firm, and we've been operational since 1946. So we have been in the staffing game for 74 years now. And it's really our focus to focus on the success of our colleagues, our clients, and our candidates. So each local Spherion franchise works really hard to provide workforce solutions in their respective communities and local economies. And today, Spherion operates nationally in over 200 locations and serves the workforce needs of over 4,000 businesses. So what that means is we're putting about 90,000 people to work every single year. This large reach means that we're placing our employees in diverse industries, different types of roles and positions in different locations every day. So during our time together today, it's my goal to bring some of our subject matter expertise in industry leading safety, hiring, and management practices to you as you and your business or organization navigates through this COVID-19 era. So we'll try to take a couple of opportunities to answer questions as we go through this call. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat and we will field them as we can. But since we have a diverse representation of industries joining the call today, and we understand that your needs are unique to you, we're gonna take a fairly macro or overview type approach to this topic. So if you have specific questions about your industry or your specific business, please contact me directly after. I'd be more than happy to go into detail with you and help tailor solutions for you and your organization. So what I want to share with you guys today are some things for you to think about and to put into practice as we return to work or we prepare to do so. As we go through this material related to the idea of returning to work and doing so safely, I'll be touching on four main topics. We're going to start by taking a look at current regulations and guidelines and how we can stay up to date with them. Then we'll jump in to some best practices to keep in mind while implementing safety plans and programs, and especially how it relates to the effect that COVID-19 has been having on our workplace. And next, we'll briefly touch on creating a strong work culture through maintaining healthy employee morale. And then finally, we'll take a look at what hiring looks like right now and after COVID-19. So as we jump in, my first advice to everybody is to stop, to breathe, and to think before you rush to return to work in the same capacity or in the same manner as before COVID-19. So for you and your company, this could actually mean reopening, or it could be the idea of bringing employees back from working at home, or getting back to a full workforce by hiring or rehiring laid off or furloughed employees. So it's really important that you're able to gain a firm understanding of the prerequisites, the safety measures, and controls needed to return to work. But also take that a step further and really ensure that your entire business ecosystem gains this understanding as well. So what do I mean by this? Well, as we all know, Indiana is taking a staged approach to reopening as a whole, and all but 3 counties have been in stage 3 for about 2 weeks now, and we're projected to move into the 4th stage in the middle of June on the 14th. So if anybody happens to be joining us from Lake or Cass or Marion County, you know that you just joined stage 3 this week. So welcome. But do you really know what stage 3 of reopening really means? Like what's allowed to be open? What capacity can different venues or businesses or operations operate at? What's still closed? What can you not do? Do you know where to find this information? So I know one of these questions on a personal level is we have a 3-year-old and parks are still remain closed, and that's tough. But one great resource to find the information that can answer some of these questions is backontrack.in.gov. And it really gives you the entire breakdown of the 5 stages that this initiative is taking. But it also shares different guidelines for specific industries. There's up-to-date information about COVID-19 here in Indiana, and even a marketplace so that small businesses can get in touch with the PPE that they need. So if you haven't already, I would highly recommend checking that out, getting familiar with that information and sharing it with your team. But apart from government regulations, there are several questions that you really need to be asking yourself. For example, does the potential business opportunity right now justify the risks of returning to work? Or is it critical to have my workforce here on site to continue profitable organizations? Or is it possible for us to utilize or continue using a stay-at-home or a work-from-home model? Now, for industries such as manufacturing and logistics that are very common here in Central Indiana and Boone County, there's very little opportunity to work from home. But in other industries, it may make the most sense to have and continue having a remote workforce. So policies and regulations and guidelines are changing very, very quickly. So it's important for us to stay vigilant. Make sure you're consistently staying up to date on these changes at every level in order to maintain readiness for any additional changes that we will inevitably see. So also, we know that there are some expectations by the World Health Organization and other organizations that although we may have flattened this curve currently, there may likely be a second peak coming later. So the regulatory issues that we're addressing right now for workplace safety will continue to evolve over time, and it's really important for us to stay informed. So what we've developed here at Spherion comes from working in 10 different countries and looking at over 400 safety measures being used by leading companies. That is one of the greatest things about Spherion is our reach and our network. We can really engage with them so that we can get in touch with diverse industries and companies and bring that information to you with our safety first approach as we're entering into our new normal. So that's what we are excited to share with you guys today, and hope that we can provide you some guidance for moving forward safely. So using this information that we've obtained from the various areas and industries and organizations, Spherion has developed a plan in response to COVID-19. So our plan at Spherion is a framework that consists of 3 main components: a detailed guidebook, an operational checklist, and using schematics and visuals. So it's really developing and using a detailed manual that is built around your specific business's principles, values, and goals. And it provides the necessary guidance to continue operations and continuing them safely in response to this pandemic. Then the operational checklist it's really just that. It's a checklist used to keep track of everything needed to return and being fully operational. So it allows you to make sure that the necessary measures and controls in regards to safety are being addressed before you resume or begin operations again. And then finally, having actual schematics and visuals of how the layout of your workplace will physically look, including those new safety measures that you're putting into place, allows your workforce to say, okay, this is what my work environment will look like. This is what I'm going to see in my work area that is different than before. This is really what I can expect when I come back to work. So we'll be able to give you an example of one of those in just a little bit, but we're also going to make our guidebook and our operational checklist, as well as a few other resources available to all of you. So if you'd like any of this material, you can reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to share those with you. As we move forward and we prepare to reopen, we really have to start thinking about workplace safety in ways that we may not have in the past. We want to make sure that we first engage all of the safety committees and systems and programs that we have already had in place and really build off of those. But now, depending on the industry that you're in or the products and service offerings that you provide, safety may not even be a core competency of your organization. Like for many companies, it's actually a very distant consideration depending on what you do. So in that case, what you'll need to do is launch new committees or systems as you build out your safety protocols. And it's never fun to try and change the tires on your car while you're actually driving it down the road. So here's some things to think about in that regard. Begin with defining your goals of safety initiatives and your programs. Have your end in mind, and then make sure what you're doing is really making progress towards your goals. Creating that vision allows your colleagues and your leadership and your employees within your organization to meaningfully connect your vision to what they are doing every single day. So you also want to ensure that you have a mix of key stakeholders in this process. That way you're able to have every level of your team engaged. And you have to determine the critical functions of your safety programs and management systems so that, again, your vision is very, very clear and your team is engaged at all levels. And then what you want to do is to work collaboratively with the team in order to both solve current safety issues and risks, but also prepare and hopefully prevent future ones. This has to be an ongoing effort. It can't be a one-time activity or meeting, but a continual process to continue at the pace which we need to be moving in order to make and adapt to changes that we will face. So this pandemic has really forced many of us to shift our mindset of just injury prevention, but also add illness prevention to the forefront of our mind and really the heart of our safety programs. And this is a very, very different thing to consider. So as this shift occurs, you'll need to develop or implement a detailed manual, like I mentioned, providing the framework and the guidance for reopening your operations. We all know that right now it's a big challenge to obtain all the equipment and provisions that we need, whether it's masks for your employees or hand sanitizer or gloves or different types of sneeze guards or barriers, whatever it may be. But it is crucial that you have a plan in place to ensure that you're able to obtain the physical resources needed to bring people back or restart your operations. Excuse me. It's also important to make sure that your marketing and communication plans are ready for all of your audience. For us at Spherion, that's a very diverse group. It's our clients, our candidates, our colleagues within the organization, our company as a whole. So when you think about all of those audience, they all have different points of view of what's really important to them and what new behaviors they need to engage in order to perform well. You also want to respond to the need for increased reliability and risk control. It's important that rather than just looking from the 30,000 foot view of your organization, that you are reviewing the averages and standard work practices role by role by role to be able to use this in a post-COVID work environment. And this requires a lot of questions to ask yourself. You got to consider health screenings. Are we going to screen our employees, and how often are they going to take place? Are we going to do those daily or weekly? Are screenings going to be just before the beginning of someone's shift? And if so, where are we going to conduct these screenings at? And is that time compensable? When it comes to sanitation and hygiene, of course, we always worry about that in the workplace. But on top of that, will there be any additional hygiene or sanitation requirements for employees to adhere to while they're at home that you may not have required before? So, for example, if you are requiring your employees to wear face masks and you provide them with reusable face masks that have to be washed, are you going to wash that for your employees, or are you going to have specific guidelines around them washing them themselves at home? So for additional personal protective requirements, are you going to pay for those? How are you going to distribute PPE, or how often will it be distributed, and under what circumstances? And then considering safe distancing practices, it's important to consider that both the employee and the customer. So how is this going to be monitored? How will employees interact with each other, and how will they interact with clients and customers? So we know that social distancing requirements have been clearly laid out by several different organizations, but are they going to be implemented in place of PPE, such as facial coverings, or in addition to them? And I think we've all been to stores or different places recently where they will have a shield up, but both the customer and the employee lean around and then they're face to face again. So how are we going to monitor things like that to make sure that we're continually mitigating that risk? So a lot of things to think about and consider in terms of that increased risk control. And as we're looking at our safety programs and our measures and our controls, we really need to focus on the behavioral changes that we're requiring and make sure that we are continually reinforcing them. You know, muscle memory is a very difficult thing for us to erase. For many of us, it's an automatic response to extend our hand for a handshake when we're meeting somebody for the first time. And it's so ingrained in us that it's almost unnatural not to shake someone's hand. So we need to be positive, but reinforce and monitor and really encourage our employees or our colleagues to self-monitor these types of behaviors so that we can reduce risk as much as possible. One of the most effective ways to find success in this shift of our safety mindset is to engage in a plan, do, check, act methodology. And this helps us ensure that our safety standards are being maintained. So what that looks like is we want to plan by anticipating risks, as well as anticipating new opportunities for increased safety in the future. Then we need to do and engage the necessary actions laid out in our plan. And remember, these activities lead to much better safety and successful outcomes when they're accomplished together. That's why it's so important for us to have every level of our team engaged in these safety measures and programs. So then next we need to check and see, is what I'm doing really working, or do I need to make some changes? And then the act stage, here you're not only able to see your results, but continually improve by making necessary adjustments to our actions and controls and measures. So with that in mind, the implementation of a hierarchy of controls is also very important. This assists in determining what measures and actions are really needed and which make the most sense for your specific work environment when looking at a potential risk. This can help clearly define the escalation process of controls, as well as promote reliable and consistent communication. It allows both leaders and workers to better understand what really improves safety outcomes. And as you can see here on this graphic, it lays out the escalation of measures and their correlated effectiveness. So in this example, when we look at PPE like face masks or gloves, we know that these are great and they serve a very significant purpose, but by themselves, they're actually the least effective. However, with additional and potentially more restrictive measures in place, the effectiveness of controls, excuse me, of these controls increase significantly. So we could look at implementing administrative controls by changing the way people work, such as enforcing social distancing guidelines or engaging in those health screenings. But you can also engineer controls which isolate people from the hazard. This can be done by changing the design or the layout of your workspaces or using things like barriers. The next level of escalation would be substitution or replacing that hazard. And a prime example of this is the working from home model that so many of us are used to right now. And then the next level of escalation, of course, would be eliminating the risk altogether. So let's take a look at an example of the hierarchy of controls being used when determining a company and how they address the issue of breaks and break rooms. Now, the first thing we obviously want to do is try to eliminate any hazards or risks if possible. But in this case, it's probably not possible to eliminate breaks or break rooms. First of all, obviously, breaks are oftentimes mandated to some extent. But also, if you eliminate the breaks of all of your employees, you're probably going to have to start looking to replace the staff that resigns. It is also unlikely to be able to effectively enforce the use of PPE during break times. So on the other end of the scale, it's pretty difficult to eat your lunch when you're wearing a face mask or a respirator and it's covering your mouth. So then what's the best course of action for mitigating a risk in this situation? One idea might be to stagger those lunch times or break times in order to decrease the number of people that are gathering in a break room. But is that possible in your workplace? Depending on the number of employees you have on shifts or the size of your operation, it may not be. What about engineering a solution to keep your risk low? I've heard the example of one company in their large break room with the cafeteria style picnic tables. They engineered a barrier system that was a zigzag across the table between by using PVC pipes and clear plastic shielding so that someone could sit here and then they are completely isolated from everyone else, but is still able to enjoy their break in their lunchtime. So another option is substitution a possibility. Is it possible to have your staff take their breaks at their designated workspaces? Again, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But giving thought to each level of this hierarchy, you can really dig into the details of what options you have, and then take a look at which will be the most practical and the most effective for your specific work environment. So as you develop or expand your safety programs and policies, you're asking yourself all these questions that we've been talking about, and you're utilizing that hierarchy of controls. This is where that operational safety checklist that I mentioned earlier comes into play. So regardless of whether your organization is returning to work or continuing to work, the operational checklist is a great tool to utilize during these times. This type of checklist allows you to begin the execution of your plan and really keep track of the results. It really helps organize and track all aspects of your safety plan, including the regulatory and jurisdictional requirements, your leadership and management systems, the controls, measures, and actions that need to be taken in your work sites, as well as the training necessary to implement and maintain the safe work environment. So here's an example of a safety plan that was broken down into 3 main areas that clearly defines the measures to be taken by this company. In this example, what they wanted to focus on was work and shift planning, health and hygiene, and then communication and compliance. So for their shift planning, one thing they did was to split shifts and increase distance between their workspaces. For health and hygiene, they established daily disinfection procedures, and what they did was discontinue the use of any shared items like pens or phones or headsets. And then for compliance and communication, they opted to communicate every single day about the purpose and changes of the measures they have in effect. So remember that what the workplace was is not what it is, nor what it will be. So it's important to really mentally prepare our entire organization for our new workplace environments and the new protocols that we'll have in place. And you've got to expect a lot of questions. So as you prepare to reopen or ramp back up, ensure that the physical space is ready. As you can see here, it's kind of small, but we have an example of a visual layout of an office and how it includes the safety measures being taken. So this is that schematic or visual that I mentioned earlier. This illustration shows that walking paths have been altered to make it a one-way traffic environment, and it's designated by floor stickers. The blue circles on this visual show where employees are able to sit, and the other chairs will be removed. It also shows that the empty desks will be equipped with signage that shows that they're not active workspaces. So it also shows that the barriers being used, the location of sanitation stations and signages describing safety measures, they're all included on this. So obviously it's important to complete this with as much detail as you possibly can, and in a way that makes sense for your particular workplace. Again, be sure to determine how accountability in terms of adherence to these policies and procedures will be handled, and then communicate it to your team. This type of preparation, and then pairing it with these visuals and having that clear and open communication not only prepares your workforce to know what they're coming back to, but it also instills confidence in them and your customers, showing them that you have it figured out. So as we shift gears here a bit, one of the biggest challenges that we are facing today is morale. There was a report recently released that showed about 79% of people are feeling between a medium and a high level of burnout. So obviously the current circumstances that we're in have helped create or worsen some of that burnout. But fear of the unknown is a very, very real thing. And the idea of not knowing what to expect when it comes to your health or your career can be extremely scary. It can be very anxiety provoking. So it's important that you're sharing the knowledge that you're gaining with key stakeholders and encourage confidence while showing that you're using an increased support system. Clear expectations can really help deter low morale. So determining what is mandated versus what is recommended is crucial. What you must do or what you should do. For example, a statement like, maybe you could work from home. I mean, that could really give mixed messages. Does that mean I'm supposed to work from home? Does that mean I'm supposed to be at the office, but there might be a time when I start working from home? Or does it mean that I'm supposed to split my time? So make sure the information and expectations that you are gaining and sharing with your team are clearly developed and very clearly communicated. Uncertainty and doubt can be devastating to the morale of your workforce, and that can be devastating to your operation, your profitability, or just the daily functionings. So along with that, some of the people that are currently facing the most uncertainty and the most doubt are those that have been furloughed or laid off. So it is crucial to maintain contact with these individuals. We're actually hearing a lot here in the market that some of these individuals are oftentimes not hearing anything at all from the employers that have furloughed them. So make sure to ask about and respond to their concerns. Then share your plans and your status with them. This is especially important if you're implementing a phased approach to hiring and or rehiring when the time comes. If an employee hasn't heard anything about coming back to work, but they see, well, the company's bringing people back or they're hiring new employees, they're going to get the idea that you're not interested in them as a future employee. And if that's not your intention, you want to be proactive with your communication with these employees. So although it may be extremely difficult during these times, continue to focus on employee engagement. Oftentimes the behaviors, actions, and attitudes of employers set the tone for the entire organization and employee morale. And also, don't forget everything that you've done and you're planning to do to implement organizational health, including culture, change management, and the anticipation and intervention of risk. And then make sure to share that information with these furloughed or laid off employees. So as we begin to finally see the light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully, a lot of companies in our area are looking at rehiring. By maintaining communication with those employees that have been furloughed or laid off, it's going to allow you to quickly rehire when you need to. But remember, employees' priorities might be different than yours sometimes, especially during periods of this constant change. Ooh, excuse me there. Sorry about that. There we go. One more. Here we go. And we're back. So their priorities may be different from yours. So you got to keep in mind a few things. Like the fact that some people are actually bringing home more money right now being unemployed. Also, have the childcare needs of your staff changed during these times. It may be different. And so with that, employees may need a completely different shift or flexible hours or something along those lines. Also, employees may have a significant fear of contracting or sharing the virus with their families. So think about these things through their eyes and make sure that you're using the right messaging when you go to speak with them and go to rehire. And remember that you may have to resell your employment proposition. Furloughed and laid off employees will need to understand why they should come back to work for you and why now. Also keep in mind that they're probably coming across other job opportunities during the time away from your company. So don't just assume that they'll be coming back to work for you, but be ready to resell your employment opportunity. As we shift and look at hiring new employees, be prepared to modify your existing selection process. Your talent acquisition team may be used to the old market, but we have to be ready for and keep in mind that the floodgates of candidates is going to open. So with 30 some odd million people unemployed right now across the US and with the highest unemployment rate here in Indiana that we've ever seen at around 16.9%, if you've built a strong, healthy, good work environment and culture, you're going to be flooded with candidates. And that may be a very different process for talent acquisition, especially if you used to have to source candidates so diligently over the prior 6 months in order to find those great employees. It's going to be different because there's going to be a lot more opportunity. And again, we have to remember the point of view of the unemployed. Should I go back to work or should I stay unemployed? Will I be able to find childcare? So the best available candidates are going to have options. So you may be competing to bring in the best talent. And quality is still going to be an issue in the market. So when all of a sudden you have 20 new applicants for every open position, if you were one of those people that was accustomed to really having to dig deep to find great candidates, your inclination may be to hire the first few to come in the door. But now that we have more available in the market, at least in the short term, you may have more flexibility and more opportunity to be more selective in your hiring process so that you can really find that best quality. It also might be a good idea to continue virtual interviews. I know Diane was talking about that earlier. Not only does it promote and encourage safety, but it can also increase your speed to hire. with a flood of candidates coming, it's crucial to have the most efficient hiring process so that, again, you're able to obtain the best talent before they pursue other opportunities. You also want to inspire confidence in potential employees, show them the steps that you've been taking to create a safe and successful work environment, share with them the ways that you've been able to weather this storm, and then show them what the next steps look like and how you and your company and them as a potential employee will be able to grow together. So really keep in mind how the talent acquisition world has been completely upended. Many businesses have shifted to more of a survival mode. And although you can't blame anybody for that, it makes these types of organizations incredibly vulnerable to your recruiting efforts. We've seen examples of how the discussion revolving around employees has shifted to layoffs and pay cuts. But keep in mind that this is going to reverse quickly. And in a lot of areas here in central Indiana, it's already begun to reverse. So the demand for talent is going to continue gaining momentum and moving at a really fast pace as we move forward. So if you have not already started, it's time for you to plan for that rebound right now. And then finally, the last point I really want to address when it comes to hiring is that oftentimes we may be tempted, especially during times of crisis, like the one we're facing right now, or the Great Recession back in 2008. It might be tempting to think, you know what, I could probably pay a lower salary right now, but really be careful of this. We have to remember and accept that salary remains extremely, extremely important. And even in the short term, if you can get someone at a reduced salary, be aware that in 6 months from now, they're going to be looking for new opportunities. So you have to ask yourself the question, does it make sense for me to reduce my cost in the short term, invest my time and energy into acquiring and training and assimilating someone, if I'm just going to lose them to a more competitive salary or pay rate elsewhere in a couple months? So again, just be aware that for so many people, salary is still king. And it's not a great time to think about reducing your entry point from a salary or pay rate perspective. So I know that we have touched on a lot today, but as we wrap up here, if any of the information that we've covered today is of any interest to you, reach out to me directly. I would be happy to talk to you. My email address is listed here. I would be happy to share our 27-page e-book, that guidebook that I spoke about, which includes a copy of the operational checklist. So I also have, through our team here at Spherion, we also have a lot of other COVID response materials that I'm happy to share with you, and different things related to returning to work. I also wanted to mention that Spherion has had a long-standing partnership with Economic Research Institute. And with this, we're able to develop quarterly salary guides for the communities that we serve. So our salary guide breaks down different industries and positions within those industries to provide insights into competitive salaries for the current market. So I'd be happy to share a copy of this with you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I know that we have one for Indianapolis, and Carrie, our marketing manager, has worked really hard to make sure that we have one for Lebanon as well. So you can send me an email. My email address is shown here. Connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can call one of our local offices. With that being said, again, I want to thank you all for being here. And if there are any questions, I might have seen some come through the chat, so we can check on those. But if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask, and we should have a few minutes to take a look at those. Let's see.
I encourage you all to, if you'd like to speak in person, just unmute and you can ask your questions or submit those via chat. I know I already sent Carrie a little email. I'd love the information even for the chamber office. We are a staff of 2, but we're open to the public, and we host events. So we are, developing our plan on what that looks like specific, to the chamber organization, for the safety of not just Lexi and myself, but visitors that stop by our chamber office. And we plan on having someone in that office by appointment each day beginning June the 15th. But Lexi and I at this point will probably, it's a smaller office, so it's difficult on a continual basis to really keep that social distancing. So we may be working alternate days for a little bit, until July 4th. So that's kind of what we're implementing at this time. But we know things can evolve, and daily we've seen that happen. So we know we kind of have to be fluid a little bit in that plan also. I encourage people to, what are some questions you have? What are your biggest challenges in developing, a safe workplace, or, most importantly, communicating? Feel free to share. I know there's representatives on this webinar today that are essential businesses that have been doing business in full force since the beginning of this. Maybe they have some good success stories, how they're providing a safe workplace or helping address concerns that their staff has, or maybe customers have. Maybe there's one common challenge that businesses are experiencing that folks on this call can, give some success stories how they have addressed that. Does anyone have anything that they'd like to share? Everybody's quiet today. I know I was thinking about, what Ross said, when you go out into businesses, everything looks a little bit different from business to business. So, there's been those guidelines. Some of those things aren't mandated, but they're guidelines. Some businesses, are making those guidelines mandated for their specific business. We all know that, some businesses require everyone coming in that door to have a mask, and some recommend. I know that's, been a great question for folks. What are you guys seeing out there? Are you seeing the same? So some of your, maybe Ross or Carrie or Anna, those businesses, that are your clients, are they mandating, face masks and temperature checks? Are you seeing that being pretty consistent, or is it vary from business to business?
Yeah, I think we're seeing kind of a range of things, and I think Anna would be a great person as the director of operations, here in Indianapolis. She's seen it all firsthand. So Anna, would you mind sharing a little bit on that?
Sure. Yeah, we certainly are seeing that at several of our customer sites. I know just last week I went out to a prospect, and we had to do the temperature checks at the door. We had to wear masks, ensure social distancing between us and the client that we were speaking to, and even watching out for the people that were out on the floor too. So we're definitely seeing that at several of our customer sites, and even some of our customers are, just like we talked about, implementing like testing and things like that. We've seen a couple of our customers that are moving more towards a model like that also, and we're kind of in talks with figuring out whether that time that is being spent testing is compensable too. So we're seeing the vast majority of the businesses that we work with take a lot of extra precautions to make sure that not only they are staying safe, but their employees as well.
And we all know, if you look at, back on track guidelines, they say as of July 4th, right now, those guidelines are kind of the extension of, being less restrictive, you know, number of events going up to 250 plus. I know they, you know, it still recommends some social distancing guidelines, but are your businesses, do they have dates that, you know, as of this date, maybe those guidelines of temperature checks and required face masks might be uplifted? Or are they having kind of, this is going to be extended through the end of 2020 and we'll see what, you know, new cases look like? What are your thoughts on that? I know a lot of people have asked, you know, as of July 4th, is everything just back to normal?
Yeah, we haven't seen any customers that have set any sort of a specific deadline on those restrictions or those extra measures that they're putting in place right now. And I think part of that is just because it is unknown. You know, we don't know, like we talked about, there could be a second resurgence of all this. And I think that most companies are wanting to err on the side of caution with not even looking towards an end date yet, and kind of figuring that out as they go. So no, I mean, there's no companies that we're working with, to my knowledge, that have put a strict deadline in place saying, well, this is the date that we're all just going to go back to what our old normal was, per se.
That's good information. Does anybody have any other questions before we conclude today's webinar? Or Spherion team, is there anything additional you guys would like to ask or actually present?
You know, I think we touched on a lot. Like I said, if anybody has any questions that are specific to their industry or their company, please reach out. I would love to connect with you and help you out in any way we can. Obviously, if anybody is looking for assistance in hiring, that we would love to partner with you there and find the employees that you need, or help you navigate through the floodwaters of candidates. If you're getting swamped, we can be the vetting process and get down to those quality employees for you. But please utilize our resources. You can also visit Spherion.com and find all of our resources there. And the return to work things are all under the COVID-19 tab at the top right of the website. So that's about all I had.
We appreciate your time. We appreciate, as Lexi said, your dedication to the Boone County businesses and community and the chamber. We know you're a great resource to really work, you know, you're a part of our Workforce Alliance in Boone County. And, you know, this is a time to really continue to secure top talent to fill those open job positions and continue to make Boone County the strong business climate that it is. So again, thank you so much for your part in addressing, you know, positive workforce development. We greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, so I encourage everyone to reach out to Ross, get that valuable information. I love a checklist that, you know, I think we all have those items on lots of notes, and having that in one place and to be able to have a checklist that you can really look at and, yes, I'm doing this, or maybe something that you're not aware of that's important that you implement. So I look forward to receiving that also. So thanks, everyone. Have a great day and enjoy a little bit of sunshine before that rain settles in.
Well, thank you again, and everybody have a great rest of your day.
Thanks. We look forward to seeing you all in person soon.
Yes.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.